Hi, Susan Clare, GourmetQuilter here. Just going to show you what we might do this time with something like some leftover half square triangle units. Quite often I trim them away. If you followed some of my other videos, you'll know that if I'm making things like snowball blocks or flying geese, I trim off the little corners, and I suggest that if they're large enough to keep to reuse, that's a good way to do it. So you do an extra seam when you're doing flying geese and snowballs and things like that, and then you trim between the two seam lines, and then you've got something like this left over, or it might be larger. I've got some larger ones here, depends a little bit what you're making and the size that they're going to be. And then usually they need trimming down. They're not an exact size when that's happened. So I found that just by trimming them down to a size, so these smaller ones, I'm trimming down to measure 1.5 inches square. So at the moment they're a little bit larger than that. I don't think I've got any separate here, but these ones I've just started joining those together. I just trimmed that to a 1.5 inch square, and that's just a little bit of trimming off. And the larger ones I've got trimmed to 3.5 inches. So lots of fun to use because they're all leftovers. So they're all different scrappy colours. They're from all sorts of different projects. But why not use them? They are mostly teamed up with white, or some of them have got a little bit of a soft grey on them, but basically reading that paler colour, and I've set them with white. But colour choices are yours. You might have a much different colour palette. You might not want the white in between. So many things you can do. So I just wanted to give you some suggestions of ways you can use them, because if you're like me, you save all these bits, and sometimes we think, oh, I've been saving those, what will I do? Today I did something. So I thought it was quite fun, just with all my smaller ones, with the ones that I trimmed to 1.5, well, not all of them, some of them. I have this large jar full of things, plus I have more. So I've started here, and I thought it would be quite nice to make this that sort of spirals around. And you could continue on and make a whole large quilt like this, or a smaller quilt, or placemats, or a cushion. What else can we think of? All sorts of things that you could make out of it. So I started in the centre, and because they're already in the half square triangle unit shapes, or squares, that makes it quite easy. You've just got to team them up. So I started here. This is the very centre of this, if we treat this as a block. And then I put a plain square next to it, and then we're basically working top to bottom and side to side, a little bit like a log cabin, the courthouse steps arrangement, if you know that, where you add opposite sides as you build out. And so usually we've got a plain going to the square there, and then we've got the joined pieces there, and then a plain strip there, and then we've got the joined pieces there and a plain strip there, and so on. So opposite sides is either the pieced bits or the plain, whichever way you look at it. So that's quite good. And you can of course do this in any size. So what I've done here to this point, because it adds up to 9 across, that's a 9.5 inch square. So that would work quite nicely just as a block if you wanted to make up several of those sort of pieces. You might have different sizes of triangles as well. They might not all be as small as that. You might have larger ones. So I just thought it would be quite fun to see whether you could mix the two, and I think you can. So I've done the centre with that small size, but I think you could continue on building out with a larger size as well. Now you might not go quite as large as I've gone, it's just that the next size I've got was quite large. So when I did all this building out, the last side that I've actually put on is down here. So it's actually waiting for its opposite of the white or the plain on that side, if we're going to stick with that working opposite sides. So if we continue building out, but we can change size. So I don't think that's a problem. We're just going to go larger now. So now I would put this one on this side, just to show you how I would build it out. I'm just overlapping a bit because of the seam allowance that we would normally take, so it doesn't look too strange, because otherwise things won't fit. So now that one there has got its opposite, so now we can go top and bottom. And I have kept all my triangles up the same way, so that all the points are facing up as it happens. Whoops, that's not going there. I'm going to get myself in a muddle here. So I would be coming across the top here with the pieced one, because it's right after one of the plain alternate ones. And I had them all laid out so I wouldn't get in a muddle. And here we are. And so now opposite that will be a plain one. So we're always alternating the plain and the pieced, which always helps when you're working it all out. And it's quite straightforward to work out because it's just another square. Whether it was the smaller ones, it was just one more for the length. And it's the same here, it'll be one more, they're just larger. So measuring it in between is not that hard to do. So this one here would come down this side. So remember, we're following this around, so we're still coming around with our piecing so that it still will do that twirly thing. A square twirl, now there's a thought. And the opposite side, I just thought if I showed you like this, you'd see how you can build it out, just starting in the centre. And I've done it as a square. You could also do the same sort of thing, but start off making the centre more elongated and make a rectangle. Your sides wouldn't all be even length, but you would be basically building out in the same way. I've just got 3 more pieces to put up so that you can just see how it goes. So then this one up here, we've got the plain coming next. It's quite nice in this larger size. If you've done a quilt where you've got lots of leftovers of this large size, you could do something. Some of these are even pieced, they had other colours in them as well. Great way of using up some of these leftover bits. Okay, and so this one would come along the bottom here. And so these will finish, these larger triangle square units will finish as a 3-inch square. So what we've ended up with is 2, 4, 6, there's 7 of these. So this is now going to measure, where are we going? This way. 21.5 inches. So that's quite a nice size for a centrepiece for something. This would all fit better if all the seams were sewn, of course. But I just wanted to show you how you can just have this fun with this whole twirling thing going around and round. And we could come back to smaller sizing again if you've got lots of different sizes like that, if you like that idea. There's lots of room if you want to do some nice quilting in something like that, or you could just do some all over quilting. But I just wanted to give you a suggestion of something you might be able to do with some of those leftover half square triangle units that we have so many of. Well, some of us do anyway. So that was it for this time. Thank you.